Hi, everybody. I'm Sheldon. I'm an alcoholic. It's great to be here. I get to see some old friends on here, which is really nice. Amy, congratulations on your year. Dolly, I adore you. Congratulations on your 22 years. And Glenn, at a little over 36 years, I'd like to congratulate you also. That's fantastic and certainly very impressive. So, boy, me. Let's talk about me. I started drinking pretty young. I had my first drink when I was 9. I didn't really become a daily drinker until I was about 13. But by the time I was 13, I was drinking something, smoking something, taking something every single day. I, um, I, I really, growing up, kind of a little disjointed this morning, but growing up as an awkward kid, my parents got divorced when I was really young. We were a Jewish family and we'd moved to a non-Jewish neighborhood and a lot of bullying and dad was out of the picture. He wasn't a part-time dad. He'd moved to a different country. And growing up was hard. And I felt awkward and insecure and I didn't like my family and I didn't like the people I was around. I just felt awkward and anxious. And when I first had that first drink, I got a sense of relief that I thought was magical. Now, the situation of my childhood does not make me an alcoholic. There are many people that had worse childhoods than I did. Right? I wasn't beaten, starved, abused. There was no sexual misconduct. Really, the worst thing about my childhood is that it was happening to me. If it was happening to you, I would tell you, get over it, Punky. It doesn't sound that bad, but it was happening to me, and that made it somehow real and more painful. And when I had that first drink, it's not unlikely that it would give me a sense of relief and freedom. But that doesn't make me an alcoholic because there are many people with bad childhoods or bad circumstances that they like to have a drink to take the pressure off and they feel better when they have a drink. What makes me an alcoholic is that from that very first drink, I was obsessed with the idea of changing the way that I felt. And from 13 until 28, when I got sober, I spent all of my money, all of my energy, all of my time thinking about drinking. Whether I was thinking about how I'm going to get my next drink, thinking about how I'm enjoying my current drink, or regretting my last drink and thinking about how I'll never do it again until the next time I did it again. I was obsessed with drinking. I, uh, I had a good break when I was young. My family are fairground pitchmen. We sold Ginsu knives and oven cleaners and gadgets at state and county fairs. And when I was 19, I got picked up by a company that was on QVC, and I was rocketed into financial success like I'd never known. I was a poor welfare kid, and all of a sudden I'm on national TV, and boy, you would think if what was wrong with me was an awkward feeling of being unloved and unappreciated, if what was wrong with me was that I had no hope in this difficult childhood, you would think that getting that success would have fixed all those problems. And I would have said, okay, well, now I'm a rock star. I'm going to be fine. Everything's going to be wonderful. And for a normal person, they may have said, well, I don't have that stress or that discomfort anymore. My life doesn't suck anymore. I can quit drinking now, or at least maybe not quit, but I can moderate and just have the one or two or three that I'd always dreamed of having. But of course, for me, budding alcoholic, you pour a little money and a little applause and freedom because people started making excuses for me because they wanted me to show up for the next TV shoot. Boy, it was all fuel on the fire. And I was off and running. Um, I really am an alcoholic. I only have alcoholism. It's the only disease I have. But as most people under 80, I also did some drugs. And money, alcohol, and drugs are a bad combination. And when I was 25 years old, they fired me from my job. I was the national spokesperson for a company called Kenwood, and they fired me. And when they fired me, I knew why. We typically do know why, and it's typically somebody else's fault. And there was a guy called Bernard that worked for the company, and Bernard, I knew, was an anti-Semitic. He didn't like Jews, and he just wanted to get rid of the Jew from the important seat. Of course, in my exit interview, they didn't mention Bernard's prejudice. What they said was they thought it was inappropriate to have an alcoholic crack addict as their national spokesperson, which I thought was a little bit of an overreaction, but it was their world, and what was I supposed to do about it, right? So I lost that job, and then, but I had a good resume, so I was able to get another good job, but I couldn't keep it, and another good job, and I couldn't keep it, and now I'm 26 years old, and I can't get a job, and if I can get a job, I can't keep a job, and when the rent's due, I can't pay the rent, and when the car payment's due, I can't pay the car payment, and all of a sudden, I'm in an indigent detox facility, a 7-day spin dry, and I'm living in a halfway house. And if you would have asked me how that was possible, I would have told you it isn't. You can't go from where I was at 23 to where I was at 26. You can't. I mean, you couldn't plan it. You couldn't say, how can I destroy my life so incredibly fast, and how can I create such a ski jump, as the big book calls it, into homelessness and poverty and warrants out for my arrest and family mad at me, and I didn't have these words, but loneliness, fear, anxiety, self-loathing, chasing oblivion, chasing whatever I could put in my system to shut the noise off in my head. And I started coming to you, but I couldn't stay sober. I'd get a day or 3 days or a week. I got 30 days twice, and I lied about 60 days once. And I kept going in and out. And the total span of time was 3.5 years. So I guess chronologically I'm off. It was 25 when that started, because I got sober a little after my 28th birthday. But for 3.5 years, I went in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, getting sober to get loaded, convinced that there was something wrong with me other than alcoholism, convinced that there was something wrong with me that you guys couldn't help me with, convinced that I was doomed. I was reticent. I knew what my life was going to be like. I knew that I was going to get some money, drink and drug as much as I could until I got stopped, whether it was by another DUI, or whether it was by running out of money, or whether it was by some other outside influence. It was never I woke up and said, boy, I should probably quit. I was always jammed up in some kind of a spot, and I would come back to the meetings and I would quit again, but I knew I wasn't going to stay quit. I knew I wasn't going to stay quit. I had lost. Early, I had the thought that maybe AA would work. Early in this 3.5 years, I thought maybe I could get sober and stay sober, but by the end of it, I had lost all hope of that. When the big book describes me as a hopeless alcoholic, that's the hopelessness for me. I have lost all conscious or subconscious consideration that I might turn my life around. And I wasn't suicidal because I'm a coward, but I just imagined that I would be one of these guys that you see in AA going in and out, getting a few weeks or a few months and screwing up again. And then eventually we quit coming to meetings, and we just lived this pathetic, skipping along the bottom life. I don't homeless well. I've been a couch surfer, not a homeless guy, but I was afraid that that might be where it would end up. And the book says how bleak it is before the dawn. And boy, I just remember even getting high, like I'd get some money together and I'd plan a drunk. And in the old days, drunks were great. And then towards the end, maybe the drunks weren't that great, but at least the excitement of the plan, right? Heading to the liquor store was exciting. At least maybe the first 15 or 30 minutes were fun. And then I'd get into this rummy, depressed, I hate myself mode. But at the end, I couldn't even muster that. I was just drinking because drinking is what I do. I was just drinking because drinking's, it's like you got to eat, you got to sleep, and you got to drink. And the three things that you got to do if you're going to stay alive. I'd been going in and out of AA, I thought. It's funny to say that. I'd been going in and out of AA because I really hadn't. There's a great line in the doctor's opinion that has been coming up often when I share lately, and it's this line after restless, irritable, and discontent. It's this line where Wilson says, "And as strange as it may seem to those who do not understand, that once an entire psychic change has occurred, the man who seemed whatever, like he couldn't, so many problems and despaired of ever solving them, or I'm not a good quoter, but you know the part I made. As strange as it may seem to those who do not understand. I thought I understood. I really thought I understood. I thought that my journey in the beginning of Alcoholics Anonymous, I knew what AA was. I thought you came to meetings and sometimes you got honest about what was going on. Usually you didn't. You quoted a few platitudes, maybe something you heard at the meeting the day before that everybody was impressed with. You regurgitated it as if it was yours, but you just, I just wanted to fit in, or I'd say what I thought my sponsor wanted to hear. And I'd say weird things like, this time it's different. That was my cry when I was going in and out. This time it's different. Until somebody asked me, what's different? Well, that's a tough question. What do you mean, what's different? I really want to this time. Well, didn't you really want to last time? Well, obviously not, because I didn't. I know, but you really wanted to. I think, I don't know, you're confusing. This isn't fair. I'm new. You're supposed to be nice to me, right? Quit being mean, for God's sakes. But this time it's different. Oh, my other favorite one was, I'm sober a couple, 3 weeks now, and this time I think I'm really getting it. Getting what? What do you mean? What are you getting? I mean, what are you getting? Well, I'm getting that if I go to AA and I turn my life over to God, I'll be fine. Was that new information? Well, no. So what are you getting? You had that last time you were here. What are you getting? And what I didn't know was that when Wilson said, as strange as it may seem to those who do not understand, what he meant was, this seems ridiculous to anybody that has not done what it says in the 5th chapter. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. That it is strange to seem to anybody who has not thoroughly followed our path. Boy, I don't know. I'm not really a quoter, but I'm on a roll, so let's quote another one. In the forward to the 2nd edition, 50% of people get sober at once and stay that way. Another 25 get sober after some relapse, and then another 25 show improvement. What that means is, statistically, half the newcomers that show up at your meeting should stay sober forever. And if that's happening at your meeting, I want to come. It ain't happening at mine. 75% of people after some relapse get sober and stay sober? That's ridiculous. We're only going to have 50,000 at the International. We'd have 944 billion if those numbers were right. But there's that line before that where it says, of those who came and really tried. As strange as it may seem to those who do not understand, those who have not really tried. What does really try mean? Thoroughly follow our path. What's our path? Well, I can't tell you your path. I can tell you mine, but it seems similar to the people that I know that have fallen in love with AA, because that's what has to happen. If this is still punishment for your drinking, like it was punishment for my drinking, like I've been sentenced to a boring, glum life in Alcoholics Anonymous, if this is still punishment for your drinking, you aren't one of the ones that really understands, right? I mean, it kind of all comes in a circle, right? But what does that mean? Well, it starts with a sponsor. Who's a sponsor? A sponsor is somebody that's been through the steps that can guide you along the way. You guys, most of you guys are sponsors. I'm preaching to the choir, but it's fun anyway, right? What the heck, right? But you got to get a sponsor. And then you got to get a home group. You got to get a group that if you're not there, people are surprised you're not there. And you got to get a commitment in your home group. And my problem is I don't know what the word commitment means. I think the word commitment translates to convenience. I have a convenience in my home group. If I'm available and there's nothing else going on, I'll show up and I'll do the job half-assed. But no, you got to get a commitment. You got to be there. My sponsor used to tell me, if you're not dead or in the hospital, you need to do your commitment. When your friend calls you and says, hey, Sheldon, can you go to dinner on Tuesday? I have to say, gosh, can we do it Wednesday? I have a commitment on Tuesday, right? You got to get a sponsor and you got to get a home group and you got to get a commitment. And then you got to work these steps. The way it was explained to me was you have to have a working knowledge of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous that is so thorough that you understand the directions that are being given to you. So not only can you follow them, but that you can teach them to the next guy. So you got to work these steps and then you got to become a sponsor. So I need a sponsor, I need a home group, I need a commitment, I need to work the steps, and then I need to sponsor other men. And the promise that is made to us is that if we will do that, the end of that journey will be a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. So I don't even have to worry about whether or not I'm going to meet God. You know, this is kind of weird, right? But I was told you don't need to believe in God to do step 2. What? What are you talking about? Of course you do. You come to believe in the power greater than yourself. And then I was told you don't need to believe in God to do step 3. Well, that's even more ridiculous. How can I turn my will and my life over to the care of something I don't believe in? Well, willingness is the key to that, right? And maybe I'll talk about that in a minute. But what I was trying to do, I think a lot of the times when I went in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous was I was trying to have a spiritual awakening as a result of the first 3 steps. And that's not what our book says. It says having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, and it says it in step 12. So the implication must be as a result of all of them. I mean, if you were to ask me or any of the people that you admire in AA why they're sober, we're all going to say the same thing, like it's written down on the back of a card. If a new guy asks you why you're sober, say this: I'm sober today because of a power greater than myself that I found in the ruins of Alcoholics Anonymous. By the grace of a loving God, I get to be sober today, and I'm grateful to God for AA and AA for God. And I don't mean to goof on that. It's my reality. That is why I'm sober. But if I could meet God in the first 3 steps, why the hell would I do a 4th step? I mean, seriously, they suck, don't they? 5th steps are embarrassing. 6 and 7, nobody understands 6 and 7. 8 and 9 are expensive. 10 and 11 are so confusing. Most people think they're doing 10 when they're really doing 11. And 12, there's way too much good stuff on Netflix for me to mess with step 12 if I can find God in 2 or 3 and if God's the answer. So I did 1, 2, 3, drink, 1, 2, 3, drink, 1, 2, 3, drink, looking for God in places he doesn't exist. Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous says this about step 2. It says, and this is like where there's lots of beautiful writing, we're agnostics, and some stuff in there is a solution. Great spiritual writing. But where do you actually take step 2? Where can you say, on what page can you say, I'm taking step 2? And I believe it's on page 47. And I believe it says something like this. We need to ask ourselves but one simple question. Do I now believe, or am I willing to believe in a power greater than myself? Well, the word or means it's possible I don't believe. Do I now believe, or do I now believe? No. Okay, it's fine. You don't believe. You don't need to believe to do step 2. Do I now believe, or am I willing to believe? Willing to believe. Willing to believe what? That I might be wrong. Willing to believe that it's possible, even though I have no connection with God and I don't think God is there. Am I willing to believe that maybe, just maybe, it's possible that there might be a God? There might be some kind of power. There might be something, whatever you want to call it, that I can relate to, plug into, and feel like that power is helping and directing my life. Is it possible? Not likely, not definite. Gun to my head, no. But is it possible? Then the book goes on to say, as soon as a man says that he does believe, or is even willing, it says even, like it minimizes the amount of necessary belief, even willing to believe. We emphatically, that means with excitement, assure him he's on his way. In other words, done, step 2, in the bag. Don't believe in God, but willing to go look for him. Where do I find him? 3 through 12. I'm willing to do 3 through 12. Step 3, turn my will and my life over to the care of that God. You know, Sam Shoemaker, or was it Ed Dowling? One of these 2 guys wrote, I think it was Shoemaker, wrote a beautiful letter in AA Comes of Age, where he was talking about his view of AA and spirituality. And he described it as the scientific approach to spirituality. What does that mean, the scientific approach? What that means is that if a scientist is going to run an experiment, what he does is he sets up some things that he knows are true. And I know what my life is like. Those are the things that I set up in the spiritual deal. I can't stop drinking. My life's a mess. I'm really depressed. These things we know are true. And then he sets up a test. We're going to test a hypothesis. And the hypothesis is that God exists. He does not say God exists or God doesn't exist. He has no opinion about the results of the hypothesis. He just tests it. Then he runs the experiment, and sometimes he goes, yeah, I was right. And sometimes he goes, no, I was wrong. I need a new experiment. So the scientific approach to spirituality in step 3 that I was directed to do was to act as if God exists, even though you don't believe in him. You know what the actions would be of a man that did. Take those actions. So pray. Even if you feel like you're talking into the void, just pray. Do things that are spiritual in nature. Be kind, be honest, show up when you say you're going to show up. Try and treat people the way you'd like to be treated. Try and act out of love instead of fear. Take the actions of a man that believes in God, even though you don't. Run the experiment. And periodically, we'll check back on your life and we'll look at the result and we'll see, is your life better acting that way? Or is your life worse acting that way? If it's better, let's continue the experiment, continue to act that way until you feel like your experiment has produced enough evidence for you. And if your life gets worse, they're still selling booze. At any point, you can make the decision, the experiment has failed, AA doesn't work, I'll go drink again. But take the experiment. What's the experiment? How do I run the experiment? Well, let's start with an inventory. Let's write a 4-step. Let's share a 5th step. It's part of the experiment. Let's try and remove some of the confusion around 6 and 7. How do I do that? There's a trick to that. We'll come back to that. 8 and 9, make the amends. Clear away the blockage between you and God. Allow the Spirit to flow free in you. Make yourself feel like you deserve a shot. 10 and 11, continue 4 and 5 to be driven back into 6 and 7. Without steps 10 and 11, I wouldn't have a 6 and 7 experience. 6 and 7 is the result of a lifetime of inventory. Step 12, try and show somebody else what you found. You know, they always say that you don't really learn anything till you try and teach it. In my life, I can make excuses and call them coincidences and good luck, and I can blow off the things that happen in my life and minimize them. But when I see them happen in your life, I go, holy cow, was that God? I can't explain it any other way. I can't. You're trying to explain to me what happened in your life. I can't explain it. Well, and I get to see God in your life. All right. I think the whole thing we do here is 6 and 7. I really do. I think everything that Alcoholics Anonymous is 6 and 7. That's why it's so confusing. You know, you go to an open discussion meeting and somebody brings up 6 and 7, and you're always going to hear this. They're not that important. Wilson only wrote 1 paragraph on 6, and then just the prayer for 7. He kind of blew over them. They're the flyover steps, right? They're magical in one respect because you show up at your sponsor's house having written your 4-step. You've done a lot of work. It's taken you a while to get there. You spend a few hours, 5's in the bag. You say a prayer 6 and 7. You scribble a list 8. Shoot, you show up at 9 o'clock in the morning on step 4. You leave that night on step 9. We're actually making progress. They're the flyover steps. I have a sneaking feeling, and this is just, as Sheldon sees it, this isn't verifiable by any source other than my brain, which makes me think it's probably true and makes you think it probably isn't. But in my head, I think that the reason Wilson only wrote 1 paragraph on 6 is because he wrote an entire book on 6. The whole book is about step 6. How do I become willing to really see the truth about my life that I need God? And how do I become humble enough to ask him for help? Step 1, there is a problem unsurmountable by any way I can figure out. Hopefully there's an answer. Step 2, the answer will be step 6. Step 3, decide to do step 6. Step 4, write a list of what my life's like without step 6. Step 5, tell on myself about what my life is like without step 6. Step 8, make a list of the mess I have made and the people I have harmed by not living in step 6. Step 9, repair the damage that I've made by not living in step 6. 10 and 11, make sure I'm still living in step 6. Step 12, try and help somebody else have a step 6 experience. What's a step 6 experience? Evidence that I can't. What do I do in step 6? I try my hardest to do it without God, even though I can see the truth, and become humbled by the fact that I can't. And so in 7, I can turn it over to God. Boy, I'm off on a tangent here, but I'm having fun, so bear with me. One of the weird things we do in AA sometimes is we share to each other as if we weren't trying to relieve ourselves of alcoholism. We were trying to relieve ourselves of another disease that we share with every other person on the planet, our humanness. We try to pretend that through AA work, we have become so pure, so powerful, so wonderful that we're no longer human beings. I'm not trying to outgrow my greed. I'm trying to survive it. I'm not trying to outgrow my lust. I'm trying to survive it. I'm not trying to outgrow my arrogance or my selfishness or my self-centeredness. If you're trying to do that, you're in for a weird journey, boy, because you're going to beat yourself up. You're going to drift into morbid worry and reflection. I am not trying to outgrow my humanness. I make a lot of mistakes. I am incredibly flawed. But that's why I have step 10, when these crop up. When, not if, when. I look for selfishness, dishonesty, self-centeredness, and fear. I am perfectly human. But that means I am spiritually imperfect. And I am not trying to be bigger or better than I am. I am trying to survive the trials and tribulations ahead of me with the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous that allow me to be as human as I can. It's kind of weird because I'm about to talk out of both sides of my mouth, okay? Because it sounds like I'm saying, you hear that, right? People with 5, 6, 10, 20 years of respect, I'm still an alcoholic, which has the implication that AA doesn't work. I came in sick, I'm doing the steps, I'm staying sober, I'm still sick, what do you expect from me? I think that's bullshit. I think AA really works. It really does. I am a much better human than I was 28 years ago, but I'm still human. All right? I'm trying to. The 12 and 12 talks about putting ourselves to the top of the heap or else burying ourselves beneath it. And I'm trying to do neither. I'm trying not to say that I'm a piece of crap. I've always been a piece of crap. I'm an alcoholic. What do you expect? Nor am I trying to claim spiritual perfection. I'm trying to be like you. I'm trying to breathe in the middle of AA. I'm trying to do the best I can. And I'm trying not to be. And if I can, boy, it's that weird thing, right? I mean, why is 5 and 9 so important for me, and 10 and 11? And it's because I do one of two things. I beat myself up for being garbage, and then I beat you up for being garbage. Or I pump myself up for perfection, and then I expect perfection from you. And then I'm disappointed at me for not being perfect, and then I'm disappointed in you for not being perfect. But when I can become what they call right-sized, or just another bozo on the bus, if I can be human and I can accept your mistakes, maybe I can accept mine. Or maybe I have to accept my mistakes so I can accept yours. But what I'm really trying to do is breathe, which is the thing that alcohol used to give me, the ability to breathe. My problem is I'm a pig. So I can't use alcohol to breathe. I have to find something else. And this spiritual journey, this thing that I've been on has allowed me to do that. I was thinking in the reading, I like that reading. I read that reading before, and I like that reading. I have a slightly different spin that works for me, and it may work for you. And if it doesn't, that's okay. I don't think I'm an expert. I think I'm the entertainment on the Wednesday noon meeting is all I am. So you don't take me too seriously, right? But it is a spiritual axiom that anytime there's something wrong, it's me that's disturbed. This is true. But when I was new and first doing inventory, my sponsor, I'd go to him with problems. It felt like my sponsor was saying to me, Sheldon, you're always the idiot. The other people in your life are perfect, and it's always your fault. And after a while, that gets tiresome, and you don't want to call your sponsor anymore because, for God's sakes, I mean, you don't even listen to the facts. I'm trying to explain to you what they did, and they were wrong. They were wrong. And you're discounting that, and you're making me feel like an idiot. And I'm telling you, this is not, no, I don't buy it. What does the big book say? Well, in the inventory section, step 4, it makes a comment, and it sets it there and it leaves it there. It says the world and its people are often quite wrong. And it goes no further. It acknowledges that the world and its people, I'm not the only one that's wrong. The world and its people are often quite wrong. So if that's true, how is it possibly a spiritual axiom that anytime I'm disturbed, there's something wrong with me? How do those two match up? Well, the world and its people are often quite wrong. My dad left when I was 2 years old for another woman. That was not correct behavior. You can't tell me how that was correct behavior. It was not correct behavior. But then the book says a few paragraphs later, it says, putting out of our minds the wrongs others have done. So yes, if they wronged you, they were wrong. But it's a spiritual axiom that anytime you're disturbed, there's something wrong with you because that's all you're focusing on is what they did. And if you're a victim with a victim mentality, you can never be free. The only way that you can become free is through going from victim to volunteer. The world and its people are often quite wrong. Yes. Putting out of our minds the wrongs others have done, we resolutely look for our own mistakes. In the light of the facts that the other people were wrong, and acknowledging that and accepting that and then not talking about it anymore, what could I have done differently? What would give me freedom? Let's talk about my dad. My dad left when I was 2. I hated my dad. My dad ruined my life. If you would have asked me, I would have told you well into sobriety, but certainly my drinking. Why are you like this, Sheldon? Well, my dad left when I was 2, and we moved into an anti-Semitic neighborhood, and I got in a lot of fights, and blah, 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 blah. I felt less than. Mom was no good, blah, 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 blah. My dad ruined my life. I'm telling you, it was my song. My dad. I can't sing, I won't do that. But that was my song. My dad ruined my life. I'm sitting with a guy, I'm about 5 years sober. I'm sitting with a guy I don't know at an AA club. I don't even remember who the guy was. This had such a big effect on me. I remember the conversation. And I said, parents came up somehow, as they do. And I go, yeah, my dad, whatever. I mean, this is me. I forgave him, right? Because I'm a good AA member. I did inventory. I forgave him. But my dad ruined my life, which is not the word someone says that's forgiven his dad. Right? It sounds to me like I'm still blaming him, but I'm delusional. I forgave him, but he ruined my life. Okay. The guy says to me, your life doesn't look very ruined. Oh, I was pissed. How dare you? But then I take a minute, I think, and what's my life like? Well, I live in Las Vegas. At the time, I was the general manager of a major Chevrolet dealership. And I don't know if you know much about the car business, but that pays a lot of money. I was making a lot of money. I was married at the time to a woman that at the time it's another story, but at the time I was happily married. My son was about 2 or 3 years old. He was healthy and he loved his dad. I was a member of my home group in good standing. Sponsored a lot of guys close to my sponsor. I was traveling the country to going to conferences and starting to do a little bit of that. Very little, but I was speaking a little bit, doing book studies and workshops. My life was pretty damn good. I sat there and I went, He's right. My life isn't ruined. Oh, well, I have a good life. Well, why? The next question has to be, why do I have a good life? Well, sure, because I'm in AA, because God loves me and I've done the 12 golden steps and I've had a spiritual experience. I made amends and I do all the right things and I sponsor guys and blah, 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 blah. This is all true. But my actual life, the physical state of my life, why is it the way it is? Well, when my dad left when I was 2, he moved from Leeds in the north of England down to London. From London, he moved to Toronto, and then he snuck over the border, became an illegal alien, moved to California, married an American, and became an American citizen. When I was 16 years old and my life was a mess, I moved from England to California. I'm in America because of my dad, because he left. He and I didn't get along very well. We got in some fights and arguments. I ended up strung out, moving to Las Vegas because my dad didn't want to help me anymore, and that was probably the right thing to do. And I moved to Vegas. I'm in Las Vegas, and I got sober. And so why does my life look like it does? Well, had my dad not left, I'd probably still be in the north of England. Now, I may or may not be married. We don't know. I may or may not have a son. We don't know. I may or may not have gotten in the car business and become promoted to the level of general manager. We don't know. But I will tell you this. My life looks the way it does today because my dad left. And I love my life. So did my dad ruin my life? Or did my dad create my life? How delusional am I? And how much of a liar am I? Wow. I'm a liar. My dad didn't ruin my life. My dad created my life. Now, he was still wrong. The world and its people are wrong. He shouldn't have left the family. But when I resolutely look for my own mistakes, shouldn't I see what Howard Pollins used to call the golden thread of God running through my life? That my dad leaving that seemed so terrible actually was part of a magical and beautiful series of events that landed me in a life that I love? Where am I selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and afraid? Oh my goodness. My dad didn't ruin my life. I'm a liar. He still shouldn't have left. It doesn't change the fact. But I'll tell you this, my dad shouldn't have left, and I'm really glad he did. So how about that? Right? And probably the biggest favor he ever did, right? And when he died, we were close, and I held his hand as he took his last breath, and AA worked, and we made amends, and things were good. But it's a strange journey. I'm all over the place, and I like it. I'm having fun. So let's talk about something else, right? Let's go to step 2 again. Step 2. Capability of power greater than self could restore us to sanity. Sanity is an interesting topic. What does that mean? A couple of you are good friends. I know some of you. A couple of you are friends of mine. I don't think Dolly would describe me as particularly sane. I'm a lunatic. If you spend any time with me socially, you will know that I am a half a stack shy. I mean, I'm just, and I love it. I love my crazy. All right? This is not about being returned to some place I've never been, where I all of a sudden, okay, now, well, thank you. I just want you to know that I am sane and I am sober and somber, and we're going to take everything seriously from now on. This will be a very sane life. No, I'm a lunatic, and I love my lunacy. Glenn says to me, did you just go to Mexico chasing concerts? Because I have a reputation of going to Mexico chasing concerts. And I had to say, no, I was in the Philippines chasing scuba diving, because I also have a reputation of chasing scuba diving, because I'm a nut. I just am. I play music. I'm not. So what's sanity? Sanity is, my insanity is this. Every time I was driven into a state of abstinence, uncomfortable sober, anxious, separate, alone, and afraid, unable to figure out what my next move was because of the depression and the void in me. Every time I felt that way, I thought it would be a good idea for my future for me to drink again. In spite of all the evidence, in spite of everything that had happened, in spite of looking at the mess I'd made, I was able to have a mental blank spot or persuade myself or talk myself into the idea that the solution for my life is to drink again. And the big book says, how could such an appalling lack of proportion or an ability to think straight be called anything other than plain insanity? Came to believe the power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Came to believe the power greater than myself could give me the ability to stay sober in the face of the impossible. Came to believe. When I was new, they said it means came, so I show up. Came to, so I got sober. Came to believe, so sitting in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, listening to your stories, I might somehow get a sense of God. Came to believe, came to believe. And I think that there is some truth in that. But I've also come up in my mind with a twist on that, and I tell you, it doesn't matter if you don't agree, throw it away, but it's just my thoughts. The came to believe could be a call to action. Why are you here? I came to believe. What does that mean? It means I need to look for reasons to believe. It is the purpose of me being in Alcoholics Anonymous. Why are you here? I came to believe. Does your life look like you came to believe? Are you searching for belief? If you went to the grocery store and the guy said, why are you here? And you said, I came for the milk, then you would have to go find the milk. If you came to believe, start looking for reasons to believe. And yes, we start in the steps. It's where it begins. A friend of mine was telling this story, and I love this. I thought it was hysterical. He was sober a long time, and he was in one of these places that we get where the spiritual tide goes out, and he was feeling a little lost and separate from God, and he's at a meeting, and a couple of newcomers shared, and one of them shared, I was coming to the meeting today, and I was feeling a little down and out, and I was feeling lonely, and I missed my family and my grandma who took care of me when I was a child. With mom and dad were out drinking, and grandma took care of me, and she died a few years ago, and I really missed her, and I was just really depressed. And I'm walking to the meeting, and this hummingbird was at a tree as I walked to the meeting. My grandma loved hummingbirds. She had a little bird feeder, and she loved hummingbirds. And when I saw that bird, I knew God was talking to me, and he was telling me through my grandma that I was going to be okay, and that AA was going to work, and I'm so grateful, and I just love God. And he said he hears this, and he thinks, what a lot of shit. It's a freaking hummingbird. It's a hummingbird. Next newcomer says, I was walking to the meeting today, I was really down and out. I smoke, I know I should, and I've been trying to quit smoking, but I can't quit smoking. I was out of money. I had no money. Cigarettes are freaking $10 a pack, and I'm so tired of coming to the meeting and mooching cigarettes. You guys all look at me like I'm so worthless when I ask you for a cigarette. And one day I would like to come to the meeting with a full packet of cigarettes and be able to give out cigarettes. And I wasn't going to come. I was like, I can't go to the meeting, and I can't go in. And I looked down, and there's a $10 bill on the ground. And I knew that was God. God gave me that $10 bill. So if anyone wants a cigarette, I have a brand new pack. And I knew he was telling me that I should go to the meeting. And he thinks to himself, what a lot of shit. And he's driving home, and he's thinking, what is going on here, God? I can't see you. And these newcomers, they haven't sponsored anyone. They haven't talked anywhere. They haven't done anything magical or mystical in alcohol. I'm your servant. I'm almost a slave to you, for crying out loud. How come they can see you and I can't? And then it occurred to him, because they're looking. Because they're looking. I've gotten so used to miracles, I quit noticing them. You know what I expect? Want something stupid? I expect to stay sober through the end of the day. And I expect to be sober tomorrow. I expect Glenn to make it to 37 years, although you haven't yet, and quit trying to take credit before it's due. But I expect you will. That's a miracle. I expect miracles. I expect them. Shouldn't I come to believe? Isn't that what my purpose should be? I want to come to believe. That's what I want my second step to be. I want to open my eyes, remove the blinders. Listen, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to me. And if you hear it too, good for you. But I want to remove the blinders and I want to come to believe. I want my purpose in life to be for look. We get so caught up. I'm a book technician, okay? You want me to do a book study? I'll give you a weekend. We'll go through the book. It'll be very technical and wonderful. And if you do everything my way, blah, blah, blah. And if you don't do it my way, you're going to die. I mean, I can give you the spiel, right? We can do, but God, but if that's really what we're doing here, if this really is that, there's a word that I can't find, but if it's really that rote, if it's really that mechanical, then there is no room for God. Where is God? God is in the spaces, in the gaps, in the mystery, in the darkness. God is in the places we don't look for him. And so I want a flashlight that shines on where God is. My prayer for today is that I notice God. God has provided me with abundance. He's given me everything I need, not everything I want, not everything I want. But most of us probably aren't hungry to a point of starvation. Most of us probably have a comfortable place to sleep. Most of us probably have some friends and someone we can lean on. And if we're new, it's not many yet, but it's growing. Most of us have a level of comfort that is survivable. God has given us everything. I want to notice that. I want to be aware of that. And if I notice and I'm aware and I can come to believe, then perhaps I can get the one thing that will set me free. Instead of being a victim, I can become grateful. So I hope I heard something today and I can be grateful. And I hope I entertained and perhaps inspired some of you. And I hope I didn't piss anybody off. But if I did, you got a sponsor, call them. It'll be fine. You'll get over it. Thank you so much for letting me be with you this morning.